Well, two Pixar sequels back to back. Quite interesting stuff here. Although, probably not for the right reasons. Because we have now come to what many would consider to be the worst Pixar movie, Cars 2. Now, going into this rewatch, I wanted to look at this without being blinded by nostalgia. Because I remember watching Cars 2 on tour back in 2011. And, well, I've gone back and forth a little bit between what I thought of this movie. And in recent years, I was kind of defending the movie, saying it was underrated. Sure, it may not have been up to the standards of the first movie, but I thought it was a fun new adventure. So I was kind of intrigued, but also kind of nervous about what I was going to think of this movie going in. And now, after this latest rewatch, I can now say that Cars 2 is alright. Hey, don't look at me like that. I mean it. Okay, look, it is filled with flaws. But I mean, it's not the worst of Pixar by any means. And it's not really up there with the first movie, but for a new feel of a sequel, this was a decent effort. But I feel like we should get into specifics here. Let's get all the flaws of this movie out of the way with. The first is, of course, making Meta the protagonist instead of McQueen. Let me just say that I'm actually okay with Meta being the lead here. It makes for a good change instead of McQueen being the lead. But I feel like this story could have worked if McQueen was the lead. Like, do what Torque did in his rewrite of the film and make it a personal story like the first film. But while I'm okay with Mater as the lead, like I was okay with Percy being the lead in Day of the Diesels, my issue with Mater is that he just acts kind of stupidly in this film for the sake of laughs. And in certain parts of my rewatch, I was just shaking my head thinking, can you just stop doing this shit? Like, come on, Mater. He is still the happy-go-lucky tow truck, and yeah, there are bits in the film that make for a good laugh. Like, the scene after he eats the wasabi is easily the best and funniest moment of his in the film, in my opinion. But mostly, he's just dragged along. It doesn't really have that much of a goal. Of course, writing the funny guy as the lead can be done if written right. Finding Dory actually did this perfectly, in my opinion. But in this scenario, Mater is just there. And I feel like they could have done a better job of him if they spent a bit more time figuring out all the kinks in the story. And another is the direction. Going from the more personal story we saw in the first movie to a literal spy thriller. And while it is pretty fun and interesting, it just feels so over the top most of the time. It's like the flooded mind sequences in The Great Discovery, except taking it in a more sillier way because it's meant to be an animated film. I do find the characters mostly interesting, and I'll get to that in a moment, but why the sleep? But I will admit that the opening is a fun little sequence, if you ignore the fact that this is a Cars sequel. And I love the part when Finn just kills like 30 cars in a second. And also, what were the bad guys thinking with the whole backup plan to take McQueen out when he gets close to Meta? Like, do these idiots know that there are literally TV cameras everywhere during these flipping races? Oh my god. This plan is just kinda dumb. And the only reason why is because they had to dumb down the bad guys. Because kids. It's like the one-hit wonders in the hit era. Cool designs, but what was their whole motive? And I do wish McQueen was more involved with this story instead of getting pushed aside in favor of Meta, especially when it comes to the World Grand Prix. But this is supposed to be the sequel to his first movie. I mean, he's literally up front on the main poster for the film, for God's sake. And I think that's about it for the flaws, because shockingly, all the good stuff saved it from being a not so good film. The animation here is a big step up from the first movie. All the countries are really brought to life in this film. And it's funny that Tokyo is here because we did see it prominently in Tokyo Meta. So it's neat seeing it on a bigger scale. The other locations are really well done as well. You can really tell that Pixar was trying to bring this franchise to a higher scope than the first movie, which I appreciate. But you can tell that they're just how humans would be seen in it. Particularly with Paris and London. I mean, why is there sidewalks and a telephone booth for humans? And like, the whole Paris set dressing here is just using the same assets from Ratatouille. Hell, they even referenced Gusteau's at one point. Except it's spelled Gastos. Wow, seems like they put a second of thought into that. Cool. The new characters here are mixed. All the spies are neat-looking cars, and their voice actors do a great job, especially Michael Caine as Finn. But, like the villains, they've also been dumbed down. But not really as much as the villains. But the thing that bothers me about Finn is, despite what we see of him throughout the majority of the film, how in the hell does he always keep getting caught? Like, Finn, how the did you not notice that flipping helicopter right above you? But Francesco, though, oh man, he is a treat to watch. He is definitely the best character to come out of this film. It's a pity that he didn't show up in Cars 3. I mean, Jeff Goldblum did, and kinda Lewis Hamilton, albeit it was just his voice. So, why didn't Francesco appear? I bet he would have knocked Jackson Storm down a peg with his boasting. But in any case though, Francesco is great. Most people would see him as a bad guy, but deep down, he is good-hearted. And he does show some real remorse after seeing the aftermath of the crash in Italy. So, Pixar, if you're watching this, please bring back Francesco for like the 20th anniversary project for Cars or something, because that'd be awesome. The music may just be the best thing in this whole film. This is the only Cars film out of all three to not have Randy Newman composing the score. Instead, Michael Giacchino comes back to compose the score here. And man, does it slap! There are so many memorable pieces here. And if this film is going to go down the spy thriller route, it made so much sense for Giacchino to do something like this, since he did do the score for The Incredibles, and Mission Impossible as well. Giacchino is a fantastic composer, and I look forward to hearing more of his music as the movies go on. So, that was Cars 2. Boy, that was something alright. Like I said, coming out of it on this rewatch, I thought it was alright. Not amazing or anything, but still kinda good. I do still think it kinda gets a bit too much hate, but I do see its flaws. But unfortunately, this would be the film that would taint the reputation of this franchise and make people question about what goes on in that universe. Which stinks, because I think Cars is an amazing franchise. But unfortunately, this is the weakest film of the trilogy. And sadly, this is the weakest Pixar film that we've covered so far. Which says a lot, because this film had the potential to be just as great as the first movie, but on a grander scope. But it's just that the flaws of this film heavily hold it back. But let me tell you, this film is nothing compared to what's coming up at some point in this marathon, trust me. I would still recommend it, kinda, but I feel like the first and especially the third movie are much more of a recommended watch than this one. And given how Cars 3 sorta ignored Cars 2, It says a lot with how Pixar wasn't too keen on the whole spy thriller direction that this film took. So, in conclusion, Cars 2 is good, but is littered with flaws. But don't worry, folks. Tomorrow's movie will for sure be better than this one, as we'll be visiting Scotland based characters once more, in the form of Brave. I'm actually looking forward to this one, because I remember it being really funny. So, we will see what this movie brings for tomorrow's video.